Chapter 8. Corner parked the Mark IV in the shadows of a derelict warehouse at the last of the old wars from Frisco's halcyon shipping days. Scraps of paper skittered past as he cut the lights. Shadow from the car's roofline fell across a padded dashboard, city lights glowing beyond. In the early days of living on the Flying V Ranch, Moore had met an old prospector who showed him a technique to find gold nuggets without panning or slewing the black sands of Cali Sierra creeks. He'd say, "Fools fill their noses with crank and smack, tweaking all night to rake a few grains out of a pile of black sand. Then show him a nugget the size of his thumbnail. The earth still spits it out. The bitch is that gold doesn't always make you rich, and only greed hoards it." The old sourdough had talked on about the gold rush, gold fever, what it was like to tease wealth straight away from the earth. He told endless tales of the rush, when prospectors, after raking in buckets of gold all day, would catch and boil a fish for dinner, only to find gold in the pot afterwards. Then the real rush of cashing in. How gold dust found its way in and out of any and every man's pockets, inevitably to return to its source in a rain of tears with that haunting last laugh of lust's Irene. "What's your part?" he asked Corner. "This is outside of your usual intrigues." "Maybe I'm trying to get next to Christina's knowledge what the treasure represents. I've had the cars, the planes, and women. I want to find out before somebody blows my shit away. Find out what all this bleeding and blowing is really about. That's the real deal. The real high, ain't it? To be in on the know. The darkness, I know, has had a taste of it. Seeing what it's all about beyond just being bloody busy being busy, only to turn to dust and bust. Maybe there is something, some real gold to this philosophy business. My mother, was a ditzy city girl with split hemispheres. People called her crazy as a loon in heat, but one thing she said stuck with me. What's real never turns unreal, and the unreal will never become real. Right before her saying something like, "And that's why you ain't shit," now I had the professor, a multilingual diva of wisdom, telling me the same thing. Think that's not messing with me? The unresolved Oedipus conflict, Corner returned with a smirk. Baseball. What the fuck you talking about? Corner slouched low in the seat with wraparound sunglasses and chewed on an unlit cigar. Must be a flashback from the drugs. I'm flashing on those long summer evenings of the Kennedy 60s, remember? We were kids, basking in the new glow of the space age, after those stale Eisenhower golf days, playing under lights that made all the colors of the caps and the unis more intense. The sheer joy of youth and the game. We were right and the good guys. We weren't evil. We defeated evil. Then the murder of the king. The dark curtain coming down and that quick descent into the meat grinder of Nam. More flashback to playing baseball in Chicago early in his high school years while his folks were still alive. His weak father had a strong mistress in heroin, got rousted by a vice cop who said he dropped a dime on his connection. When the dealer made bail, his pops made a hot shot of strychnine on the frozen stubble of a winter cornfield. His mother, committed to a psychiatric hospital, saved enough of her daily allotment of Thorazine to take the big sleep shortly thereafter. As family life crumbled, He found acceptance at the Chicago Art Institute. He later found the extreme mental anguish of his parents' deaths caused a crack in his psyche. He thought about how this jagged fissure opened up a brief glimpse, a flash of recognition of it being that timeless androgen. That realization, tempered with long hours of creative drawing and painting, saved him from suicide. Corner interrupted the silence. Come on back, brother. You ever feel like you're lost and there's no way you can be found? That you'll just drift and wander, never picking up more than a few crumbs here and there? Christ! That is why I would never be an artist. You're too happy being miserable, Corner grumbled around his cigar. It's just not about happiness. You said yourself how it all turns to dust. How can anyone really be happy knowing about that little catch-22 coming around any bend? Though when I get around the professor, it feels like I swallowed a big old happy pill. I just wonder what we're really expecting out of all this mayhem and carnage. Like somehow it's going to all make sense by the time we get to the end of our days. Expecting to get the treasure and keep our guts and brains intact. Maybe your shit will stand up when some monkey's pulling your hide like a green banana. Probably not. Warren is easy to figure out, just an old fuck wanting one last wet dream. McCracken has enough screws loose to fill a hardware store. His boys in their suits and ties, $100 haircuts. Page 152. Spray-on tans, fighting his blood feud. You don't have a clue how ruthless they are. I feel more juice from the professor than that arrogant voice on your phone. He thought of her at the podium in the lecture hall, running across the campus in t-shirt and shorts. The way she looked, backlit by stars and ocean. She's out of this for now. The disc is more important for the moment. Moore scrunched down in the seat. The warehouse brooded behind razor wire, top chain-link fence, as Freddie railed the blues through the car radio. Going down, bro. It's all going down, back into itself, back into a being of it. Our world, for all its trials and tribulations, is just a light snack for him to gobble down in the middle of one of those lost, sleepy afternoons, the ones that all run together like raindrops on a pond, he thought out loud as he leaned his head back. I need the disc, whatever the fuck it is. Sleep if you can till my call comes in. We'll stay here till then. Johnstone Warren blinked in his wheelchair. Day and night his body grew more numb. He, now of a being nearly inseparable from the atmosphere in the penthouse. Then again, the more it all seemed to leak away, the more he stood, still at or in the attention of that awareness of a being seen yet indivisible invisibility. That greater Übermenschen of it. Out in her eye, or his, mercy might give him some reprieve from the morphine-tempered pain, from the PRP proteins replicated in the astrocyte cells of his other brain, are releasing their neurotoxic agents, killing the neurons in the electric slime, the E-plaque of his self-replicating nano-engineered virus. A virus activated and disseminated by a denial of it. It would play on apathy or indifference of that, ignoring away one thing as no thing. Ignorance bringing futility to this race of man, as mind or memory of ABCs of it out, appearing a while in words. Irony of that, of a being seen merely appearing and gazing it, in the first place now, out of it appearing information, supersonically as zany thoughts of it. A God essay to be letterly, y'all. Warring was still all too aware in word of his left brain, as a sacrificial lamb whose blood would infect a denial of it out in her eye of everybody as sword. DNA as cutting. Turn out of it a black around a beaming wave ray echo, a ray placating any word information out in her eyes as any information of it out now. In her eye a supersonic ping ting, pain escas knowing a virus. A virus now by now ray eye of it, in toward a betwixting as twoe, a denial of DNA, a denial of it in any information in word, image, eye, magic, my echoing, any imaginings of her, me as any thoughts of her, him, it, alone, indivisible invisibility. Warrena now echoed supersonically, knowing of it out, as zany by virus, echo captivated in verbo e fields, as cosmic microwave a personic felt neuro cellular chemical fields of you of a y I merely appearing and gazing it, or me am or why now you a by na ray I appearing and gazing it at defense of that field. A torus, now a tower zapping by a lightning igniting synapse of cosmic mind, as in toward any symbol twist of fate, faith, family. Still, indivisible invisibility as zany individual. Only Albert's brain packed more packing, more glia astrocyte star cells, with as many stars as the galactic Milky Way of it in her eye on him, making him the ultimate incubator for a virus designed to use out in their every own destructive power. The other brain, cells holding the microneurons, would naturally contribute its cellular arsenal of toxic cytokines and proteins, oxidizing, corroding, replicating his supersonic plasmic zapping ting. An electric slime subtle subline of our eyes, ion. A horizon line. A imagination image are y'all. Painting echo arrive over a consciousness. Instantaneously in one unified black around of it and toward a twisting into a being seen as etting, duplicating. A guidance guided by the why I light, now asking of it why. A why knowing out of it, that as cosmic memory of it, a being seen freestanding eye stare. Staring eye at attention as a now, as a cos nowing out of it. A supernatural eye of her, me as thoughts of her, him, it. Appearing it, gazing it, from above as below, with a pole or polarity gripped in one hand. Day now, the why now light our ideating, perceiving, perceived, perception now out, igniting a black around ignorance of it. Outside, glass windows, high-rise apartments on Telegraph Hill poked up before the bay of Seven Rivers running out, passing an old prison island under an orange-red iron bridge, spanning the gateway, tidal meeting of the rim of a wide open Pacific Ocean pouring into it. Warren did not need his technicians to tell him what was going on. It was in him, or in it was he. A true power commanded him yet at his command. Now, as king of a vast knowing out of it, a being wide open stretching to the periphery, clear to China and beyond, incubating his own supervirus, nanotechnologically engineered, fulfilled his dream of it in our eye, a verse, a reverse, alternative polarity. Electromagnetic waves now out in reverse direction. A wave out in imaginary line. Horizon. A lie on everybody. Yet there you are I yet appearing and gazing it. Still it a why I now appearing of it out as information as X. The E waves merely echo it as microwave black around indivisible body of her, me as any thoughts of her emit. In a word, freedom standing still centered, centrality point of view of you of a Y-eye appearing, a gazing it out now, a supersonic mirror knowing of it out into appearing information anybody has spun out of it now, DNA in denial of DNA, a denial of it understanding the inward supersonic phonographic spelling of ABCs, a being seen merely appearing and gazing it. That brilliance of Margot Christina engineered in Formaz, our eye awareness, now consciousness, played into his hands as a being seen, catalyst of our eye out in our eye, versal of a psi whole power polarity. She na la sonoridad, sonorización para ma atención. The voice of it engaging the enraging dialectic debate between awareness and the word freedom of a Y-eye merely appearing and gazing it, or it appearing in toward a mirrored eye, why now a twisting, a being seen now in twoe, appearing of it, a spiraling out information as DNA. DNA isle of it, a mirrored supernatural form as her, me as any thoughts of it, Warren amused on that, in the or why I now, etc., etc., etc. That, in the or why of it being seen now, ask knowing out a positive negation of it. A negation still our eyes spelling its positivity. A being positively still in the first place now, out as a positive negation ask knowing. Ask knowing of it, asking of it a why I as zany thoughts of appearing of it as existing information in word. War in a war now, are ideated, perceived merely supernatural, zany thoughts of it, a polarity of touch, a touching of its touch. Page 154. The weight of that amount of waiting on any touch. The weight of waiting on any touch. Touching, touched of it as a quantum gravity of it, as any thoughts of it. The dream came in color abstractions of awareness that alternated a alternative between anybody, any AYI, merely appearing and gazing it, or it appearing out of it now, turning it anybody as knowing it as causing it now as existing information that in toward a twisting of a being seen in a complete darkness, a space in time now to be perceived arcing of it, a YI being complete encirclement as zany garden guardian, as king of it Y, Alaka and K, queen of that in which appears any or everybody, that a D-arc not now black or white or any hue of man as mine, a D-arc R-I-D-ating, perceiving of it a complete black around rolls, playing out with a polarity on hand, out as cosmic day, twilight igniting ignorance with the weight of waiting on death, a being seeing Jesus, asking of it why, now a waiting of its touch, a waiting spell of any touching, echoing black around that quantum gravity weight, any touch of it now as knowing out of it a gravity of sheer folly, waiting on a being seen now as though out of it. A positive negativity of any wave's polarity of a positive ignoring or negating its invisibility into any now memory appearing of it, any information of it a while, a deceit of now as knowing of it, a deceit of a while DNA, following that alternating of a realize, all of which Warren found himself merely indivisible invisibility, that our eye all itty of it out of a being seen still in the first place now informed of it falling under the spell, understanding any spelling out of it in word as cosmic memory. Thus, he found himself completely at attention in a word freedom untouched, awareness now turning into or out of, as knowing a falling off and knowledge of it as sleep black into awareness of a being lack with an irresistible urgent energy presciencing whole power to be a gain and again now A being caught in any role of complete the darkness of a covenant with a God, essay to be literally, supernaturally appearing of it a while out in word. Out in word, as zany supersonic sound waves. As sword wave meaning it into dividing any information of it a wave now. Asking of it why Alaka and Queen Eye appearing it now in toward a twisting it black around as zapped in her eyes ion. Across any horizon of it, of yacht, of you, of any why, of that out in her eye of Eve Ray, Eve Ray body. Now a knowing out of it a virus infinitely self-replicating and self-organizing. A perpetual echoing of it as cause microwave black around, turning it out in her eyes. Zion Ivre body, event horizon, now a being seeing any painting of it. Asks no, knowing out of it as thoughts of a supersonic ping-ting of it. A gaining and a gaining into a mega tsunami wave, a ray eyes curving as eternally a painting of his virally engineered pigments of a full color spectrum. Our ideating a specter of it as expectation of it appearing generated by a social and print media campaign. An 8x10 photograph of Christina sat on top of the Afghan covering his legs. His finger played one corner. Out in her eye a painting, ping-ting image would be emblazoned through 3D holograms induced by his virus interacting directly with human DNA. They will now deny it in her eye. Now a knowing out of it merely in word as anybody, anything, anytime, anywhere. Of it out in her eye, all of everybody turning the black around her image, casting out the why. Daylight on the other hand, open hand, her will. A wave will evil of his volition. His our evolution. He could feel a compression of airwaves as Rakitin passed into the room. Where is my painting? Darkmoor is a painter. Why is he not painting? Warren's thoughts now appeared overhead on the screen. That business with the disc and the stolen files, but James has a man in tow. The chemistry between him and Miss Shaughnessy seems to be taking effect. Such is the nature of art and passion of desire. The painting will be their child, a changeless progeny of love that expresses that divinity, kindles that propensity for devotion coded into human DNA by the original genetic engineers, the Elohim, a mode L of it. It is no coincidence humans call the engineers God. The human is a being seen designed to be slavish. To make an efficient slave, a high degree of self-consciousness is necessary. As key, eye of a being seen out of there, in our eye, all of it, in fact, out in our eye now, no degrees to it. You give a potential slave that self-awareness, and you give that slave a potential choice to now realize his freedom, a real eyes, moment by moment. You give him the key, eye in the center of his brain, but program that slave to ignore it out as knowing, keeping busy, a being busy knowing denial of it all the time. Too busy working and jerking off to realize they are master of their own simple twist of fate. That twist toward turning to black around awareness, inward information of ABCs, of a being seen merely appearing, gazing at it in the first place, indivisible invisibility of any individual. Therefore, the engineers programmed this inclination to worship, a wordship of a being rather than our eye, all eyes, awareness still of a being, seeing it merely appearing and gazing at Warren reflected. To worship their God as goad, to function as slaves of a being now, knowing a God literally in word captivity as busyness, of a being busy, being busy. One God best off in some faraway heavenly place, sitting with his only Son. My design will play on this, but the after effects will be freedom, not captivity to any literal word creator gods. Elohim is plural. The image coded holographically in the virus, along with Ma's mass projection, will release ego from inward captivity of a being seen now busy turning black around of it, knowing out of it in your mind, now as exposed inside of my painting, echoing reverberation of ecstatic waves, y'all will know. That will turn into black around. Alright, y'all, dissolving all inward concepts. Any being seen still in the first place, all understanding of the old spells of old gods will be broken. Keaton watched the words as they appeared on a computer screen. Warren's lips were no longer moving. Warren raised a finger and Rakitan moved in close. Get my painting! Bing! Was all he managed to say as the printout continued. He watched his pre-programmed words continue. His time was short. Warren's mind, singular eye, spied a skeleton walking over wasteland of dry wash in Deep River Canyon. Wind swept free over these treeless wastes, carrying away the last traces of man and his insanity. The sun baked away any trace of the human family in their chemistry, engineering, and capital to an empire of dust. Warren had once tried to convince the board of directors to retool messing technologies as a pure research laboratory. Too much money came from government contracts developing military weaponry for them to agree. It seems there is a lot of money to be made in killing people, he mused. Okay. Page 156. What about Gina? Corner bit off her name, sending an elbow knifing into him. Her name brought her alive. Moore could see her plain as day, pulling up in a ruby red Volkswagen after 2 hours' work done on her hair, prepped for a show at sundown when the light turns from gold to violet, her songs filling him up till he spilled back out, running all over now. All he caught was dead air and a lump in his throat. God damn you! Why wake me up like that? I've tried to let her go. You were talking in your sleep, remember, after she died? Moore's mouth went dry and his fist tightened. I ran. That's your way of being pissed off right now. You got a very ugly fucker named McCracken ready to smoke anyone for the disc, including Christina. Losing one woman made you waste years weeping. Another one will bust you in 1,000 pieces. Time to make a stand, I'd say. He watched digital moments tick away on the dash. He felt deep for a renewal of strength and to curb any desire to flee and hide. Corner had flushed out his gutlessness. What are friends for? He asked himself. We take the son of a bitch down. I'm confused about my role in all this. You've been confused about all that since the day or night we met. Look, I didn't want to go into this now, what with the commission, but Corner shrugged and threw his hands up. This McCracken, he's responsible for Gina. That's why I left that note in your truck. You? Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. Let you play detective, be hero for once, catch the bad guy, and paint the priestess. See? Now you see. Corner hugged him around the shoulders. I'm trying to square things, brother. You're not going to kiss me, are you? He asked, too late as Corner busted him on the lips. Through the open windows, the air was thick, layered with bay water odors of creosote, algae, and salt decay. Corner took a pull from the tequila. He stuffed a rock from his Altoid tin under his lip, popping open a compartment under the dash that held a pair of blue steel custom-built .45 automatics. Fuck my boss. Take one. You'll need help where we're going. No guns for me. The world's chaos, my brother, Corner replied. He kicked the compartment shut. There are no good guys or bad guys, only the smart and lucky. He had a long drink of tequila, slammed the Mark IV in gear. In the background, sirens screamed by as Corner eased out, then jammed the car, joining early rush hour traffic on the Bayshore Freeway. They'll turn on me like pack animals when they get what they want, he said, cruising south against the crush of the northbound commuters. Puts me in the mood for killing. We don't have much time left. Corner pulled over to the shoulder of the freeway to retrieve the satchel from the trunk. Moore watched the traffic shoot by and wondered about his friend's state of mind before he got far with those thoughts. Corner knifed back in, setting the bag between the bucket seats, shoved the car into gear, and drove several freeway interchanges to the Hillsborough exit before leaving the controlled traffic mayhem for the order of what Moore saw as McMansions in Bel Air North. I love this old neighborhood, Corner said. Moore laughed at the irony. What's funny? Corner dipped another rock and gave his lip a cowboy bulge. Flower and shade tree dappled streets, red tiled, gabled porticos, and vine covered verandas passed. They followed a winding street until the estates grew in acreage. Corner whipped into a driveway with touch-key controlled gate. He tapped the code in, then eased up the brick drive. The Mark IV came to a stop by thick columns that supported the main portico. A short man with shaved head, wearing a blue gi, white silk shirt and painted tie, his expression serene, stood motionless at the front door. Reaching in the satchel, Corner slipped a derringer up his sleeve. He stepped from the Mark IV and walking with arms extended as if to embrace. Approaching, he let his arms fall back to his sides with a shrug. They conversed in low tones. Moore watched as Corner raised a hand to scratch his chin, shooting the man in the forehead. He caught the body as it crumbled in the driveway. McCracken ain't home. Help me with this asshole, he called. Moore felt nauseous and lightheaded, almost passing out when he stepped from the car. I guess I don't have the stomach for this. Good, Corner replied. He jerked his head toward the oversized front door and dragged the body inside. Temple bells reverberated off the high ceilings. The few potted palms added green to the starkness of cream-colored walls, low couches and black lacquered tables. Corner heaved the body in a closet. You must have the same decorator, Moore said, surprised at the casual sound of his voice. He thought about saying something appropriate to dine, but only trite piddle about furnishings or the weather came to mind. Trivializing murder masked the shock, he mused. Who dies beyond obvious falling bodies? Somehow nothing seems to disappear at first, but then is seen a death, a dying of the witness as well. The looming rub out in that blink of eyes still flashed in his mind while watching Corner, carrying on like picking up dirty laundry. He's into a Buddhist bag and other shit. These assholes think they don't walk the same ground as us. They don't. So where is he? And why the shooting, he asked without mentioning the K word. Page 158. He double-crossed me on another thing, got an associate killed. It was purely a point of honor. Honor amongst the holy band of brothers is all down the road. At his headquarters, Corner babbled in an overamped talking jag. I just saw a man die and you're talking about holy bands? Shit, man! This ain't just money. When our boy McCracken learns about Warren's real secret on the disc, he'll go after Christina. If you have any sand left, you can help her and Cassandra. Maybe you've been in the woods too long and turned soft. Sometimes a man gots to buck up, bucko, and take care of business. Can't be all soft and privileged, tax-paying hired guns to do the killing that goes on every day. And believe me, it takes plenty killing to keep the American dream going, buddy dark boy. I've seen plenty of it been to my armpits, and it ought to be a law that every white boy must kill at least one brown man just as a rite of passage to manhood. Then none of these self-righteous, soft-bellied sons of bitches could cop an attitude against those of us they hire to do the dirty work for them. Unlike you, I've never killed, except for a few flies. I have been nearly killed, though, and I must say, it's funny. I never felt a thing. One minute you're there, then there is no there, though there is you still. So, what is the real secret to who lives and who dies? Quisan Enzokia woke in a chill under a gray blanket in the back seat of her Volvo, hidden on a side street in the shabbiness of Hunter's Point. Originally an industrial shipyard, its sparse neighborhoods of rotting stucco homes were hard by the oily waters of toxic industrial spoiled bay. She regretted leaving Dark behind, but priorities dictated. She imagined Shalana walking to her class. She was stronger than Cassandra admitted to herself. Last week, shook up from an encounter with a gang of skinheads while following Kiowa Larson's trail, she discovered Shalana had come home with a .22 automatic. When she met Darkmoor, Cassandra was unprepared for the impact the spaced-out artist had on her. The drawing had found her mind merging with him in a way more intimate than sex, where it's found that I am you and you are me. She thought about McCracken and the spark between them that threatened but never quite erupted. Now, Corner. 10 years ago in Costa Rica, as an investigator, working for a Senate subcommittee, she had interviewed an American pilot with a ranch outside Cartago with his own Air Force, including a helicopter and a C-143 transport. They drove by a hangar where men were loading heavy black duffel bags. A tall stranger with wavy hair, supervising with a MAC-10 propped on his hip, had caught her eye. Her host stopped to exchange a few words with the man, introducing him as James Bishop. His eyes burned into hers. They had naturally found each other that evening. Worse, they had found each other drunk and wanting, ghosts drifting off. It seemed People who associated with Corner usually ended up being burned. She burned with him that evening, and like all the men she'd known, he turned into that sad, lonely boy before the last orgasm. Now dark, a man who seemed somehow scorched from the inside out. From her cell, she called R.J. McCracken. "Where are you? When are you coming to me?" "I thought you were coming to me, then a bunch of goons show up, tear my place up. What was that all about?" she asked, patting her hair with the phone cradled under her neck. "Not with Corner in the mix. I just can't predict him. I need a little bit more weight. Sorry for the damage. You know I'll take care of it. What about my package?" "Unlike him, I plead principles and a just cause. I am coming your way, Bwana. I want to lay your egg, and I'm not talking about spreading anything," she replied, shaping her nails with a file. "You're more than human, but you sure you're ready for such a voyage? I warn you, once you lay in my pod, you'll never be the same." "Maybe I need to change." Quasana dropped the receiver and ran. Her Volvo as a sedan pulled to the curb. She jammed into reverse, slamming the driver's door as he tried to emerge. He grimaced from the impact as she sped away. Corner shut the closet door like he had just hung up an old overcoat instead of a body. He ran his fingers through his hair and looked around. "I need to make a statement." He went to the car and returned with the satchel. "I think your pistol already said enough. Does killing someone give you detachment from the body?" Moore asked, still dazed from his amigo's actions. Corner grunted, unzipping side pockets for several cigarette pack-sized devices. "Remote control bombs. I can blow up a car or a building in 10 minutes or 10 days. I'd like to see McCracken relax to his crib suprema, reduced to smithereens. Maybe this time he'll show a little respect." "I fear you can get respect from violence, but is it real?" "I'll show you real. James don't fade away, he blows away." "That include me?" "A body in the atmosphere is no different than a fish in water. It's outside, it's inside, and in between, no real loss." Corner headed down the hallway to the pagoda in the bamboo atrium. He flipped a switch on a post and the bell stopped. "It's just a tape while the real bell is being shipped from Sumatra." Moore drifted through the rooms behind Corner, wondering why he tried to make sense of a psycho's ravings. Page 160. Scary thing if he did start making sense. He watched as Corner went about setting the miniature charges. The house was mostly ground floor with the exception of an upstairs bedroom. In the study were 2 museum-quality statues, a man with wings and an elephant's head on a human body with a necklace of rats. Gods that created and sustained but also destroyed their creations were of his kind. Moore noticed both idols were stained with sacramental oils and laden with fresh flowers. Someone knew the real power of an idol is that invested by the priests and the worshippers. Otherwise, it's just dead stone like a museum piece, a curiosity. Seeing a phone, Moore reached out and dialed Kasana's cell number. "Hey, girl, where are you?" "Me and Corner at McCracken's house. He's setting the place to blow." "Oh, that's most considerate of him. I'm on my way over." "The door is open." Explosions began in the bedroom as the Volvo pulled up the drive. Moore ran towards it in the rear of the house, disintegrating an array of fiery debris. A bullet sped past his head, splintering off a pillar. He dashed for the passenger door, seeing Quasana's silhouette in the window as the 2 more shots zinged by. "Corner's playing cat and mouse." "Haven't seen anyone else come in," Moore cried. Another round cracked a spider web in the windshield inches from his face. The Volvo left ruts in the rolled lawn as Quasana wheeled the car around and headed for the street. Moore turned to see Corner emerge from the driveway, coming up fast to rear-end her with the Mark IV. She gripped the wheel, her foot to the floor. He caught Corner in the side view mirror, wraparound shades, cowboyed out for the run. He grinned back at Moore with thumbs up. For a split second, they were young again, blowing up the Ratnick brothers. Corner fell back as a host of squad cars and fire trucks screamed by towards the tower's smoke, just as a ball of hot cadmium orange exploded behind. They come quick in this part of town, he mused. Streets broadened as Christina cruised into the quiet shade of spreading oak. Nice style, lady, Moore said. Charles and me drove some pretty hairy roads through parts of Africa where you needed armor for protection from the bandits and landslides. We need another car. You know how to boost one? Before my employment at the portal, I repoed for Wily'Em's associates in the city. I still have my touch, and I'm liking that silver BMW 330xi across the street. Christina shouldered her pack sack as she slipped out of the Volvo and walked over to the sleek Beamer parked under the broad canopies of tree-lined street. She pulled out a slim shim, popping the door lock before jumping in. She gave Moore a wave. Maybe you can get in, but you'll never get this jewel started without the key, he said, sliding into the passenger seat. Professionals never say never. She worked an electric probe into the keyhole, and they were off. Now where, he asked. To McCracken's headquarters. I need to see Christina. You have your agenda, I have mine. He watched the slanting rays of sunlight glinting off a row of polished cars parked for the lawn party. Sounds coming from across the street. Disembodied laughter from beyond a hedge. Sounded tinny and hollow to his ears, still ringing with death. The landscape had turned cold with the surf feet of wealth so beyond the man in the street. He felt Christina's eyes. Turning, he caught her features fragmented by shadows of the oak canopy. Who is Christina? Christina asked. We have to settle with McCracken. I'm trying to save our butts. And you think about another woman. Maybe so, but I fear for her safety as well. She's connected to Warren, and that means the disc. I just don't know how. Are you in love? What's love? Being all giddy and moronic? Although seeing a man killed today takes some of the glow off. I mean, Corner took a life so quickly, killed so many with a flag on his sleeve, that his heart turned cold. I guess the shock shattered my sense of being anybody worth others dying for. Now I don't have a head, so I retreat into my heart. Christina tapped the steering wheel and thought. Okay, give me the address. Take the Pacific Coast Highway. I'll recognize the street when we get there. Let me get this call. I'm making a slight detour, she said into her phone as she stayed with Moore's eyes. I know what I said. I know the risks involved. She snapped the phone shut. My former employer, they owe me. Christina leaned over to meet his lips. He tasted the salt of a tear rolling down her cheek. Sorry, I don't normally lose control like that. Only an innocent kiss, he said. Christina drove out of the neighborhood back onto the freeway headed south. What do you think is on the disc? I don't know or care. Is it anything worth dying for? I seriously think Corner is coming unglued. I don't think he gives a damn for any scroll, gold or no gold. He's getting old, wants to settle old scores and die with his boots on. He watched Christina's profile in the sidelight. Her cornrow braids as tight against her scalp as the skin of her high cheekbones. McCracken stole my husband's bones. I think mostly because he wants to jump my bones. Charles was caught in the middle of an attack on an archaeological dig. Page 162. I went looking for him when J.R. called with news of some missing $500,000, and now I trade my expertise for Charles' remains. They left the freeway and headed west to Christina. So the ex was the reason for the tears? Quisana frowned. I'm taking a little journey. There may be some risks, and I got thinking of my daughter. She she's a beautiful girl woman, and this San Francisco is a body snatching kind of place, he said, gazing off at the passing homes and street signs. There, Olympic Way, the house is hidden from the road behind a screen of oleander and honeysuckle. Quisanda parked the BMW at the top of the driveway by a hedgerow of shrubs. Sky broke through blue patches in the clouds as Christina came out the side door in slacks and a cream-colored blouse, her hair gathered in a green tie. I thought that was you. I was just heading for the campus. Forget your life. Coroner's on a rampage. We came to warn you, Moore said as he stepped out of the car. He glanced back at Quisanda in the silver Beamer as she pulled out her cell phone to answer a call. I see, Christina replied with a questioning frown. Who is your friend? Quisanda Enzokia, a friend of ours, he offered with a pat on the car roof. Quisanda, meet Christina Shaughnessy. Quisanda gave a slight wave as she continued her conversation. He bounded up the stairs to embrace her. What is this madness, she said. I had a feeling this was coming. The coroner's cork was popped, chickens coming home to roost. Tell me what you know, darling. I'm all confused between Coroner and Warren and Coroner and McCracken, who I think dosed me with a psychedelic last night, may have had something to do with my wife's murder. Running up the steps, Quisanda interrupted. Harry found my car and the Mark IV was waiting for him. The driver asked where we were, and when he played dumb, he said the driver had a henchman along and gave him a hard time. Hashimi, Moore replied. Bad news, just got worse. We should get to find a safe place. Time to call for backup. He searched his pockets for the card Richards had given him. Where are you going? He asked as Christina ducked back inside. To get some papers. If I'm part of the coroner and Warren's treachery, I'm fighting back. My work on the scroll and the papyri might be good for a bluff. He stood flat-footed as Quisanda, engaged in another phone conversation, drummed the porch rail with her fingers. Moore began doubting his eyes as he stared at his boots, with the steel toe glancing through a hole in the leather. Was he the same man who less than a week ago felt safe and sane in his mountain sanctuary? The fire that burned down his cabin in the Lost Hills amplified his disintegration, his life smeared in the ash, blood, and dust on the ragged leather of his boot. Grow up and be a man, Quisana hollered as she hustled back to the car. Stop running from yourself. Women. Women always seemed to turn against him. Where he looked for love, he found anger. An anger growing out of a deep, inbred contempt for all things male. Nausea swept over him from the pungent smell of eucalyptus. He wanted to crawl on his back and surrender to the vacuum of the night sky. He held his scream inside until it rattled in his guts. Quisana turned over the BMW. Crunching gears, she drove away, leaving behind only a trace of red taillights. The clean lines of Christina's home returned his attention. The glass walls and iron-bracketed beams protruded beyond the eaves like the prow of a ship sailing through a sea of wisteria, exploding off the bow, bunches of ice plants lining the path of the deck. He concentrated on the details where concrete married wood with rings of steel. He imagined carpenters working teak and redwood with bamboo-handled flat double-cutting saws, drinking green tea, speaking in haiku and zen koans. Reaching the entryway as Christina opened the door, he barred her exit with an arm thrust against the jamb. Bending his head to kiss her brooding lips, he caught the smell of lavender. She turned from his advance, giving him instead the soft nape of her neck. Don't hate me, he begged. Dark. Just try not hiding from who you are, what you're really about. Hiding is the best move. We have a psycho out there, he replied. Warren does not have the scroll translation. Your friend will not kill me because I know what is behind the words. Doesn't mean he won't try. Corner always had a fascination for killing things. I was his first human victim. He pulled his shirt aside and showed her the scar. Since I survived, he's left with the quandary of me asking why he shot me. Being a coke eater makes him psychotic on a wire. I saw him kill a man only an hour ago. He's over the edge. We need someone in this sort of game. Let me use your phone. Go ahead, she replied with a nod of her head. She stared after him as she slid away, letting her fingers drag lightly across his chest. Horizon of ocean and sky spread across the glass walls. He sat on cushions on the floor with the telephone, the muted crash of waves in the background. It's just never been about power for me. I guess I just knew I was too much of a fool to know what to do with it. Probably end up blowing out my own brains, he said with a shrug. I sense some violence in your psyche, but I'm afraid Corner's bloodlust is beyond redemption. That's my man, Corner. He's more cold-blooded in his advancing age. I saw that this morning. To him, everyone is a soldier and probably not a friend. Page 164. He dialed the number. Listen. Looking for Casper Richards? This the darkness? Richard's voice crackled in the receiver. I heard about some commotion at your friend's apartment and a major explosion in a house belonging to E.J. McCracken with a body in the ruins. Tell me these aren't connected. They are. I believe it's R.J., and that's why I'm calling you. I'm coming. Listen for a series of short blasts. Be ready to jump and go. Moore gave him the address and cut the connection. Take what you need and get ready to run, darling. The cavalry is coming over the hill. Men and their war games. Christina took a navy blue pea coat from the coat rack. So, give it to me straight. Is there a treasure or not? Christina went to the bedroom and rifled through documents in her wall safe as Moore trailed behind. There is always treasure, she replied, while filling a red leather briefcase with papers. Sometimes no one can claim it without starting a holy war. You haven't answered my question. Treasures get looted. I do not know for certain what remains where. The reality of my concern is not about precious metals. All of that gold is really a subterfuge. It makes the mystery more tantalizing, keeps the search alive. It is where it starts and who is following it that counts. One clue is in treasure, the word. It is a doublet, a pair of words derived from the same original. Another word for treasure is thesaurus, or book. Knowledge is the real treasure. A knowledge of anybody beaming now, knowing denial of a cosmic being, an immortal, a being beyond time, history, idle, imagination, or wordship. What is realizing being that, a being still in the first place worth? Though told of a being of it, we all, it seems, remain captivated at attention of an arbitrary, named information of it. That's the simple twist of fate, faith, and family. A denial of it now as cosmic I, merely appearing, gazing it to embrace any mere supernatural thoughts of it appearing in word. More could only stare at her eye waves, appearing to him in such a bewildered state. He remembered once a being seen teleported in dream on a ride out into the solar system. His vision of a being in sight brought attention close enough to Jupiter and Saturn that their mass completely filled his field of view and beyond the point of a being seen as though beside it, outside it. Remembering now, a realization of it pervaded his awareness. The cosmic magnitude swallowed whole any mere senses of a being other than the cosmos of a cosmic being of it. Sheer planetary magnitude disappeared his awareness then, quickly back to black, in a being of it now, knowing it out of a black around projection of it as thoughts of it now, with intent of knowing out of it intentional disregard of a being indivisible invisibility. Of it merely appearing mirrored out in word memory a while as thoughts of a being any individual. Often of 10, 8, 10, of A10, A10, a binary, R-I-D-ating, perceiving of it now out as knowing anybody. Any, a now potential of it being seen out in a Y-I, appearing it, gazing it still by now as S-16, appearing information as toward reawakening, holding that memory. That cosmic perspective from which we all turn into or out of, appearing, disappearing, into one inward idea of a being in the first place, now appearing out in knowing any name of it alone, a while, a being still in the first place, one indivisible invisibility of it appearing, information, a macro microcosmic mean, a while, a cruel, cunning deceit of anybody appearing, disappearing out in her eye of everybody. He now, Ariel, eyes it, merely appearing and gazing it, yet had attention caught up in a raging of that, a wide debate of that, merely appearing and gazing it, or appearing of it a while of space and time now, where paying attention as knowing out of it a wave ray function, as expands to a memory of a macro microcosmic perspective. Yao meaning, still invisibility of it he cogitated. From a point of view of a Y-I merely appearing and gazing at awareness of it. At attention he now disappeared black out in her eye of everybody as leaping off any imaginary ledge of knowing out of it a cosmic microwave black around, echoing of it any supersonic information of a being seeing him appearing now in word. That visual artist sensibility engaged that, untouched in the word freedom awareness, drawing on the right side of the brain. Moore's decade of powerful visions had him, kept him, burnt him up, surpassed him. A being, a being coming, a black around into or out, appearing anybody, anything, anywhere, anytime. Him, her, him, it now, a knowing out of it, a zany mere idea of himself. Christina's mirror presence, let alone the supersonic silent sound waves out in her eye of any or everybody, as voice precipitated his attention back into a microcosmic state of indivisible infinity of a YI potential, merely appearing it, a gazing now asked king of it why, a knowing, out of it appearing, etc., 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 why, a being, seen otherwise, he now wondered. Why want to be otherwise? The mere suggestion from her lips reflected a being seen of it, a microcosmic mean awareness of it, meaningful from above, of a being seen from that still centrality completely, forever complete. Completion? She astonished him, baffled his pseudo-identity, leaving him staring, dumbstruck. Then, why be otherwise? We are all conditioned by turning into or out of them, the am, man as mind, or why memory, to think of ourselves as though otherwise, y'all, while merely supernaturally as inward thoughts appear to be otherwise. The visions are breaking down the condition in your case. Now ask, knowing out of it a being seen as the darkness. She gave with a knowing smile. Of it why I of her me as zany thoughts of her him it. A yacht, a you, or me in a memory of it. Awareness of her him it. He continued merely to stare. He knew the sound of his voice could only betray his failure to sustain her eye level of consciousness. Buck up, bucko, he flashed. Breaking it back down with drugs, a bullet, and a woman. Moore managed with a frown. Is that why you socked me? Break down the conditioning? Christina laughed. In that I am always prepared. You do throw a good punch. Where did you learn that? He asked her, laughter breaking the spell. He felt his confidence rushing back in with the beating of his heart. Page 166. After an incident in Jerusalem, I took some boxing lessons at a local gym. The sound of two short blasts from a car horn entered their conversation. He grabbed her arm and bolted for the door. Richard sat behind the wheel of a gray Chevrolet in the driveway. Moore and Christina slid into the back seat. Casper Richards, SFPD, at your service, ma'am, he said, shooting a backward glance at Christina. Where is the disc? Darkness? My friend took off with it a few moments ago. Dumb move. Lady, I hope you have your shit together better than your boyfriend, he replied as he pulled out of the driveway. Just as he was about to turn to say more, his instinct gave a short jerk to the steering wheel, just avoiding the sideswipe of the Mark IV.